Right, just driving home, having stopped at Starbucks, from a Challenge Tour PGA golf event in very near the old Williams, very near the Williams factory in Frilford Heath, Oxfordshire, just up the road from Grove. Really, really good. So nice. I mean, it's a bit like going to a club race, I guess, but just so nice going to a golf tournament where you can walk around on the fairways and the greens, and the standard of golf, just unbelievable. The winner, minus 22, I think, for 4 rounds. I mean, it's just eye-watering how good these guys are. And that's just the Challenge Tour. Anyway, Formula One is what, of course, this video is all about. Try to be, anyway. I think everybody's wondering about cost cap and what's going on there. I have to say, you know, I'm slightly ambivalent about the whole thing because I've never been convinced about how it was going to work or whether we even needed it in the first place. But my understanding is, now that the announcement has been made that Red Bull and Aston Martin have been naughty, is that at the moment I think Red Bull are trying to do a deal. The amount which they've exceeded the limit will be kept confidential. I've seen numbers floating around, 7.7 I think I saw. I've been talking to quite a lot of F1 team principals, and all of them say that's news to us. Nobody's made any announcement at all. So quite sure. I mean, it may well be true, but if it is, that's a massive amount. I think anything under 5 million is considered to be minor. And my understanding is that most people think that Red Bull's excess is in the region of 2 to 2.2. And that, again, you know, big proviso here, it may well be 7, in which case it's a different conversation altogether. But on the basis that it's something like 2, that's, I think the reason, one of the reasons I've always been slightly ambivalent about the whole thing is because it's quite difficult to calculate, and that'll be based on Red Bull not declaring some aspects of the spend that obviously the forensic accountants believe they should have counted. And I understand one of those is the salary of one Dr. Helmut Marko, which is probably, I would guess, if I had to guess, Marko is probably in the region of 4 to 5, I would think, per annum, that sort of thing. And I think a lot of people would imagine that should have come out of the budget cap on the basis that the 3 key team people would have been Adrian Newey, Christian Horner, and I guess Pierre, the technical director, I think his title is. Anyway, there's more than 3 quite well-paid people there. I suppose that's one of the issues. And then whatever else they would have kept out of it has been, you know, with all the other teams, I guess 8 other teams, if you say that Aston have been doing a similar thing, the other teams have managed to do it correctly, and Red Bull haven't. And so the next thing is, if the amount is in the region of 2, I think there'll be a penalty straight away, and then there will be for sure a reduced amount of wind tunnel testing time, and then there will be an ongoing rap on the knuckles in terms of the spends over the next 2 to 3 years. The problem, and this is one of the reasons I've been ambivalent about the thing, the problem with this is that the advantage, if Red Bull had an advantage in 2021 because they were spending more than, say, Mercedes or Ferrari, that advantage will have carried through to 2022 as well. Okay, new cars, new regulations, but performance is performance and knowledge is knowledge, and that can always be a building block to wherever you're going, even if there are new regs. So that's one of the issues. And then beyond that, I think it's always difficult to know how the teams are performing behind closed doors and what they're doing. You know, Red Bull have an association, as we know, with AlphaTauri, or I imagine that they're pretty scrupulous about that. I'm sure they would be. But then, of course, you know, there's Ferrari with Haas, and I don't think Mercedes have got a similar partner, if that's the right word. But you know, how you police all that, I've always thought would be incredibly difficult. And a lot of it is just conversation. You know, Adrian Newey talking to whomever he wants to speak to. So that's one thing. If it is 7, that is a lot. That is a massive amount, and that will cause serious waves in Formula One. And there is an argument for saying, I guess, that the points for 2021 should be revised, because 7 million is a huge chunk of money. I mean, you're talking, I don't know, what for a new floor, a new lightweight floor, research and development, you're looking at, I don't know, well under $1 million for sure, probably under $500,000, and so that's a lot of money if you think about it. And if that is the case, there will be people clamoring to have the points in 2021 readjusted, and of course we all know what that means. It means Lewis potentially being world champion in 2021. Having said that, I don't know anybody in Formula One, by which I mean quite high level in Formula One, who has even heard a rumour of that even being spoken about, or even thinks that will happen. I'm sure there'll be a lot of fans out there that would say, yeah, that's what's got to happen, but that doesn't mean anything, of course. It's the people who run the sport, and that's ultimately the FIA, Liberty, and the teams. And I haven't heard any mention of points being part of the policing system or part of the penalty system. More's the shame, but then again, that's another reason I'm slightly ambivalent about the whole thing in the first place. So, yeah, if it is that amount, and in theory, we may never get to know what the amount is if, as I say, a deal is done where Red Bull sign off on an amount and an agreed penalty, and it's all kept quiet and behind closed doors. I think that's what they're working for, and I'm pretty sure, my gut feeling is that that's what will happen. So, yeah, I haven't got that much more to say about it, really. Just that I think, ultimately technology is about people, and I've always felt that, when teams were complaining about the lack of money and some teams having a lot more, and let's make it much more even and do that with a cost cap, my point always was, there's nothing that really good personnel won't put right that that solves the problems in Formula One. And it is about people, and you can run a team on a shoestring budget with the best people in Formula One and achieve amazing results, and you can have all the money in the world with the wrong people and achieve nothing, as we've seen in the past. And I still think that's the case. And I think that if Adrian Newey is limited with wind tunnel test time over the next 2 years, and presumably CAD time as well, I still think he'll be doing a brilliant job, because it is about people. And Adrian can do more on less wind tunnel and CAD usage than most engineers, well, all the other engineers, I think, in Formula One. So again, another reason I'm ambivalent about the whole thing. One interesting thing that's come up, well, I thought it was interesting since Singapore, because I thought it was quite interesting that both Renaults retired with power unit failures in that race. Quite unusual. It's not that unusual to have a power unit failure, but to have both in the same race was quite unusual. And I wondered whether that was in any way related to the weather conditions, particularly at the start. There was a lot of talk at the start about most of the drivers, I think, started in second rather than first to minimize wheel spin, particularly if you're on the so-called clean side of the grid where it was really slippery. So a lot of drivers started in second. And as I understand it, I think it was Ocon who started in second as well as Fernando. No, I think it was Fernando actually started in second, for sure. And anyway, because of that, you have more traction, more compression, and as a result of that, the engine blew, the piston went. In other words, if they'd started in first with wheel spin in the normal way, even though it was wet with wheel spin, the engine wouldn't have gone. Interesting, isn't it? In this world of modern technology and science and monitoring and data, that they can't predict that would happen. So I thought that was an interesting thing about the wet. Anyway, there we are. Looking forward to Austin this weekend. I'm going to see some new faces in FP1. Théo Pourchaire, looking forward to seeing him in the Alfa Romeo. And I think, Alex Palou, who Spanish driver, who was a protege of Adrian Campos, actually. Adrian's sadly no longer with us, but he'll be in the McLaren in FP1, and Pato Award will be in the McLaren in Abu Dhabi. But perhaps more significantly, Mario Andretti was in the two-seater McLaren in Laguna Seca, Monterey, this weekend. Wow. Mario in his 80s, still absolutely brilliant and loving every millisecond of it. What a hero, what a star. Would love to have seen that, but great that he was out there doing it. Anyway, we're doing the usual videos around the Austin weekend, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Looking forward to that. See you then.